Hello everyone, I'm here to help you with this week's quiz. This quiz is going to cover Chapter 12, Deficits and Debt. And the very first question is pretty straightforward. I give you a link. It's kind of a data hunt question. And when you click on this link, I'm asking you to find the country with the largest budget deficit as a percentage of GDP and in the year 2018. So if you click on this link, you're going to come to this particular site and it lists the countries, and it's going to list their budget, government net lending or borrowing. Now, net lending means surplus. Borrowing means deficit. The borrowing is in negative, and the net lending is in positive. So do you see this data shows data. Let me go to 2022, the most current year. So you can see Norway had the largest budget surplus. That's a positive number. That's net lending. And then if you go to the very bottom and find the largest negative number, Timor had the largest budget deficit or net borrowing. That's the negative number. So what I'm asking you here in this question is the country with the largest net budget deficit or net borrowing in 2018. So you've got to use this slider right here down below. Let me scroll down a little bit here. And you could find 2018 right here. And then I want you to find the largest negative number to answer this question. Question number 2, what would happen to the cyclical deficit if the GDP growth rate jumped from 2 to 4%? Well, you just have to go to Chapter 12 and look under cyclical deficit to find that answer. So it's going to look something like this. Now, here I have the ebook for the 15th edition for our textbook. Some of you may have the 16th edition, but if you look under Chapter 12, Deficits and Debt, there is a topic called cyclical deficits. And if you look under cyclical deficits, you're going to find that answer to that particular question. So that's question number 2. Question number 3, a budget deficit is government spending in excess of what? So you just have to look up the definition of budget deficit and you should be able to answer this question no problem. Question number 4, suppose the government has no debt and a balanced budget. Suddenly it decides to spend $4 trillion while raising only $3 trillion worth of taxes. What will the government deficit be? Well, you have to know the definition of a government deficit. Again, if you go to Chapter 12, let me go there. Under the main heading of budget effects of fiscal policy, just look under budget surpluses and deficits, and you'll find the answer to that question. For question number 5, suppose the government has no debt and a balanced budget. Suddenly, it decides to spend $4 trillion while only raising $3 trillion worth of taxes at a 4% rate of interest. How much will interest be on the government pay each year? Well, again, let's go back to the textbook. And I'm asking you, I'm sorry, I'm a little bit low here. You're borrowing $1 trillion. And how much interest are you going to pay on that $1 trillion over 1 year if you have a 4% interest rate? Well, that's basically just 4% times $1 trillion. And I'm going to just have you put that number into here. And I want you to enter in billions. So if you get 33.6 billion, I want you to round that to 34 billion, and you're just going to put the number 34 there. Here, this is pretty straightforward. I'm just asking you to match terms with these particular definitions. You should be able to find these in your textbook, that particular chapter, Chapter 12. Question 7, if the economy starts with a federal budget, a subsequent expansionary fiscal policy will create a. So if you start with a balanced budget and then you implement an expansionary fiscal policy, what will that do to your budget balance? All you've got to do is find what an expansionary fiscal policy is in this particular chapter, and they'll tell you exactly what will happen starting from a balanced budget. Chapter 8, when GDP growth slows or inflation increases, what happens to the cyclical deficit? Well, there's a problem with this question. I'm going to fix that right now. Hold on. There, I fixed the problem. So when GDP growth slows or inflation increases, what happens to the cyclical deficit? Does it stay the same, decrease, or increase? So basically, just go to the section under cyclical deficits in chapter 12, and you'll be able to answer that question. The total budget balance is comprised of blank and blank balances. So again, this is pretty straightforward. Look up these terms in chapter 12, and this should be answered no problem. In contrast to the structural deficit, cyclical deficits reflects, again, under the cyclical deficit portion and the structural deficit portion of chapter 12, you should be able to find this question, answer this question no problem. So again, if there's any questions, you just let me know.